Good afternoon, sir. This is Miss Princeme P. Maniagas, and I will going to answer the three given questions as my oral recitation for this subject. So for question number 1 is to explain the importance of medical hand washing in our lives. Medical hand washing is a method of removing as many germs from the hands as possible while avoiding the spread of those organisms. So at this time of COVID-19 pandemic, hand washing is one of the most efficient strategies to stop the virus from spreading and infecting others. So it's very vital to wash our hands with soap and water on a regular basis. Washing the palms, back of hands, in between fingers, and beneath the fingernails, lather for at least 20 seconds or more. Then dry your hands with clean towel or let them air dry. So hand washing with soap and water can safeguard you and your family whether you are at home, at work, traveling, or out in the community. It is also crucial to practice good medical hand washing at home because it will benefit you. And always remember, clean hands can protect you from serious infections while you are a patient in a healthcare community. For question number 2, explain the concepts of biosafety and biosecurity. So in terms of risk assessment and management methodologies, personal expertise and responsibility, control and accountability for research materials such as microorganism and culture stocks, access control elements, material transfer documentation, training, emergency planning, and program management. For example, biosafety and biosecurity have a lot in common. The World Health Organization Laboratory Safety Manual defines biosafety as the containment principles, technologies, and practices that are implemented to prevent unintentional exposure to pathogens and toxins or their accidental release. With that given concept, we can say that biosafety refers to and focuses on laboratory procedures and practices required to minimize infection exposure and acquisition. The World Health Organization Laboratory Safety Manual also defines biosecurity which refers to the protection, control, and accountability for valuable biological materials within laboratories in order to prevent their unauthorized access, loss, theft, misuse, diversion, or intentional release. With that given concept, we can say that biosecurity focuses on the maintenance of secure procedure and practices in handling biological materials and sensitive information. And always remember, biosafety protects people from germs and biosecurity protects germs from people. For question number 3, explain the AMP model. First, let me introduce to you the Biorisk Management AMP model. So this is the AMP model with its 3 primary components: the assessment, mitigation, and the performance. So first things first, we need to identify the key components of biorisk management. In risk assessment, we have the hazard and the risk. Hazard refers to anything in the environment that has a potential to cause harm, while risk generally defined in the possibility that something and or unpleasant thing will happen. So here we go. For the letter A stands for assessment. We need to know that in performing risk assessment, a structured and repeatable process is followed. It consists of 4 steps, and these are: define the situation, define the risk, characterize the risk, and determine if risks are acceptable or not. In Define the Situation, the risk assessment team must identify the hazard and risk of the biological agent to be handled. And in defining the risk, it must include a review of how individuals inside and outside the laboratory may be exposed to the hazard. Third, to characterize the overall biosafety risk, the risk management team needs to compare the likelihood and the consequences of infection. Fourth, to determine if risks are acceptable or not, this process of evaluation, the bio risk arising from a biohazard takes into account and any existing control for the biorisk is acceptable. For letter M stands for mitigation. It also has a procedure. So there are 5 mitigation procedures, and these are the elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and the personal protective equipment. So elimination provides the highest degree of risk reduction. And the substitution is the replacement of the procedures or biological agent with similar entity to reduce the risk. Engineering controls include physical changes in workstations, equipment, production facilities, or any other relevant aspect of the work environment that can reduce or prevent exposure to the hazard. Fourth is the administrative controls, refers to the policies, standards, and guidelines used to control risk, proficiency, and competency training for laboratory staff considered as administrative control. And then the fifth one is the personal protective equipment such as gloves and many more. For the letter P stands for performance. This component evaluates a circular process. First is evaluates and refine performance indicators, identify the key issues of concern, define outcome indicators and metrics, define activities indicators and metrics, collect that data and report indicator results, and then provide findings from performance indicators. So that's all for my oral recitation. Thank you.